A Head & Shoulders studio portrait is simple, elegant, and a significant source of revenue for most portrait photographers. And although there are hundreds of ways to light and pose a portrait like this, let me show you one great way to get your lighting set up for high-quality digital capture. First things first though, no matter what camera system you choose, be sure to set it to its manual exposure mode. Then select the slowest ISO setting that you're comfortable with and program your exposure meter with that same chosen ISO. 100 ISO is where we find we get the best results with most of our digital portrait gear. But for this portrait job, we've chosen to use a small format digital SLR. It gives us smooth skin tones, and that's what we want for this portrait. Also, we've selected a working aperture of f8.0 for a moderate depth of field and a shutter speed of 1/125th of a second to eliminate the influence of any ambient light here in the studio. Let me take a moment to orient you with our working environment here. You'll notice here to your right we've got our background. A little closer to me is the posing stool. Here's the camera position on your left, and on your far left you'll see our fill light. And speaking of fill lights, we want this to be a smooth looking portrait, so we've chosen a smooth fill light. This is a 42 by 32 inch softbox, set horizontally so it's wider than it is tall. And we've placed it behind and above our camera. Camera elevation, by the way, for this shot will be right about at our subject's eye line. Let me show you an example of what this fill light gives us at a normal exposure level, when our light value is set to f8 out of the fill and our working aperture on the camera is also set to f8. But of course this is a fill light, so we will not be using it at a normal exposure value. Instead, we've chosen to place the fill light value at a stop and a half less than the main light. So we'll reduce the power of that fill light to f4.5 and make another exposure with our camera still set at f8. This shows us exactly what the fill light will be contributing to our final image. Let's add some direction and some flavor to our lighting by choosing a main light that has a medium level of contrast and a medium level of specularity. For that job, we go straight to an umbrella. In this shot, we've chosen a 45-inch white umbrella that we've placed about 3 to 4 feet away from where our subject's face will be, and we've adjusted the power of this strobe to provide an illumination of f8.0, being as that's our working aperture. Normally when I'm shooting digital for portraits, I like to keep my main lights close, because the closer the main light is to the subject, the lower its effective contrast will be. But in this case, I want a main light that's got a little snap and a little sizzle to it. That's why we went with the umbrella and placed it that far away. Let me show you an example image of what this main light provides for us. As you can see, the light quality here is a little contrasty, and we have some concerns with these high specularity values here. But once we blend in that smooth light quality from the fill, we'll see that the main and the fill will combine together to give us exactly the right light quality we're looking for. We're able to measure our main light and our fill light exposures with great precision by using a premium quality flash meter placed underneath our subject's chin with the dome of the meter pointing exactly into the lens. Now, if you have a different metering technique that provides you with accurate and repeatable exposures, by all means stick with it. But if exposure control is an ongoing problem in your studio, you may want to check out our Calibrating Your Flash Meter DVD for getting your flash meter up to speed, and our Digital Portraiture Basics DVD for proper metering techniques for digital capture. Now when we see the properly exposed main light in action here with a value of f8, then we add in the fill light here with a value of f4.5, you can see we get an image here where the main and the fill together combine, but we're overexposed by about 1/3 of a stop. And that's not good. Digital capture is very picky about exposure. Those of you who have seen our videos or seminars before know that we're very critical about proper metering and exact exposure levels. Now, it's my opinion that this main and fill example is overexposed and needs to be corrected. No portrait shot that's a third of a stop overexposed is acceptable in my book. So let's find out just how far overexposed this image really is. We'll do that by firing the main and the fill together, pointing the meter at the lens when it's underneath the subject's chin. The meter tells us it's reading a light value of f8 and 3/10. That's a 3/10 of a stop overexposure. Now we can correct for this by either reducing the power to the main strobe and the fill strobe, or moving the main and the fill back away from the subject in order to get our light value to combine to f8.0. Now don't settle for f8 and 1 or 5, 6 and 9/10. Your camera's set to f8.0. Your meter should read f8.0 as well. Now let's take a look at a properly exposed image of the main and fill combining for our normal exposure of f8.0. And here's an example of the main and the fill combined with a 3/10 of a stop overexposure. I'm sure that you can see the differences as well as I can. This is also a great time to perform a white balance or a gray balance with your digital camera to get your skin tone reproduction as accurate as it can be. Follow the instructions in your owner's manual to do this with your specific camera. Let's add some separation between our subject and our background by using a hair light. The question is, do we go with the punch of a parabolic style hair light, or do we go at the soft edge of a softbox hair light? Well, with the beautiful dark hair of our subject, I vote for the parabolic. So we've put a 7-inch parabolic up on a strobe supported by a boom stand and placed it behind the subject, well above the subject, so it's certainly out of our frame, and it's pointing right back down at the back of our subject's head. What about exposure values? Well, for metering hair lights, I like to start off by taking my meter, putting it right at the back of where our subject's head's going to be, and pointing the dome straight into the hair light and make a test reading. Here's an example that shows only the hair light firing when we meter it at f8.0. Now, if you like your dark-haired subjects to have a vivid hair light, then leave that hair light right there at f8. But if you think it's a little too overpowering, like I do, then you may want to reduce it by a stop or so. So we'll reduce that hair light down to f5.6 and make another example image. That looks a lot better to me. But I think there's too much of the hair light spilling down on my subject's shoulders. How are we going to fix that? Are we just going to shoot it and fix it in Photoshop? No way. We're going to do it the easy way and the smart way, and we're going to fix it before we make our picture. We can do that by snapping in a grid spot into our hair light. In this case, we're going to use a 30-degree grid spot and point the center of the light right at the back of our subject's head. Take a look at this. Now that's the type of hair light that I envisioned for this shot. Let's take a look at what we've done with the hair light in this setup. First, we set the hair light to our working aperture of f8.0 and decided that it was a little too bold. Then we reduced the strobe power by 1 stop down to f5.6. Then we snapped in a grid spot to reduce the light on our subject's shoulders and got the hair light we wanted. To finish off our image, we're going to add a background light. This will give us a little drama, and it'll also help us separate the subject from the background even further. We've chosen a compact strobe here, fitted with a 7-inch parabolic bowl reflector, and we've placed it about 2 feet off our painted background. We'll adjust the power of this strobe so that when we meter somewhere in the circle here cast by the parabolic, then we get about f8.0 for our background illumination value. There's really no rules here with a background light like this. You can place it anywhere you want, as long as you don't see it in the frame, of course, and adjust its power up and down to get the background the way you want it to look. Now we're ready to combine our main at just under f8 and our fill light at just under 4.5. Notice I say just under because we've combined already our main light and our fill light in one flash meter reading and then reduced that power level of both of those so that they equal f8.0. So our main plus our fill light combine to give us f8.0. Then we're going to add in our hair light at f5.6 and our background light at f8 and get a great looking image.